Okay, it seems like we are live. I hope that everyone can see and hear us. So, welcome everyone to the Crypto Talks podcast. And today, I'm sure you recognize the face and you'll hear the voice as well very soon. Robin Schmidt on air with us from Defiant. So, welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yes, well, the voice, goodness me. I do so much talking these days. It's like the voice is getting lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. It's like it's just rabbit, 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 always talking about something, talking about crypto, talking about blockchain, talking about DeFi.
I
It's a
mean,
wonder that people don't get bored of me because I spent so much time talking about it.
well, I mean, it's these days I have a feeling that more people are interested in those topics, and we have all this organic sort of attention coming to us because it's been a bit. The crypto winter has been quite long, so now the excitement is coming back from so to speak fresh blood and people who haven't been around for a while. So I guess it's the time to speak.
It was always the time to speak. Actually, funny enough, when I started this YouTube journey, I mean, it was deep in crypto winter, and yeah, I mean, there were still people around, and there were still things you could say, but the people you were broadcasting to were, yeah, they were entrenched and bitter and angry and sore and clinging on for dear life because they felt helpless and had no other option. And it's funny if you talk to developers, they'll often say that the bear is the best time to build, and
Mhm.
there's so much noise and distraction during the bull market that it's difficult to get things done. And although I understand that from a communications point of view, and during the crypto winter, I was working for Harmony, which is a layer one high speed scaling protocol, and learned a
Mhm.
huge amount during that time. But like the amount of pushback, the headwinds you face, at least from a marketing point of view, when everything is heading south, it's very difficult to help people understand what it is that you're building, because all they do is they conflate token price with the perceived success or failure of what you're doing. And you can't very
Yeah.
easily disabuse them of that idea, because if people are losing money, they're invested and they're emotionally invested. And um, in many ways, it's not your job to be their counselor. But at the same time, you risk alienating the people who will be your core community when things turn up. But also, you kind of have to recognize that this is all part of the game. It's all part of it. So if you can't handle that, then this isn't the game for you. But
Yeah.
it's punishing. It's punishing. It really is. And I'm happy that now the work that I do is able to speak to lots of different projects, and we're not beholden to the market performance of one token, because it bites you in the ass. Things go up, but they come down, and when they come down, nobody's your friend anymore. So
Yeah, I mean, I know exactly what you mean because I've gone through the ICO journey myself as a part of a team, so I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of the whole cycle. And yes, I mean, unfortunately, token price can impact a lot the emotions that people feel, and strong emotions can go both ways. So yeah, when people are very happy, they love you. When the token price is great, they love you. But then that love can turn into like a very strong hate just in a matter of weeks. So I totally get that. But I think like the interesting thing is, when you suggested the topic and we decided that we're going to talk about creators in the space, I think I was glad that we came to that conclusion because I feel like there are so many other podcasts that talk about token prices, about trading, about trends, about news, and that side of the story. And there aren't many people who are creating content that is more not even educational, but like more related to the human aspects of this space. Because, this space by itself is a technology space. So by default, it's like, lots of techie subjects that we have to dive into in order just to understand what's going on, first of all. And then again, it's also a space where everything is directly linked to money as well. So there is that aspect of things. And the human side sometimes gets on the background. So I feel like, it needs to be addressed as well, because again, even those two are related to emotions partly as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, as a space, if you're new coming into it, you have to very quickly learn a bunch of quite difficult skills. You have to learn about economics. You have to learn about technology. You have to learn about trading. You have to learn how to separate good information from bad information. And you have to learn how to manage your own emotions. Like, all of these things are combined extremely difficult to do. And what people tend to do is they go in too deep, or they over leverage themselves. And I don't necessarily mean, margin trading, but they over leverage what they can afford to give to the space. And that's emotional bandwidth. It's mental bandwidth. It's so difficult to sort out everything that you need to sort out in terms of just understanding it. And there's so many people
at the same time.
Yeah, and there's so many people competing for your attention. And the people who are very skilled at competing for your attention sound extremely cohesive, extremely sure of themselves. And when we talk about crypto content creators, there's a tendency for all the voices to kind of align around the same kind of way of talking, which is, I know something you don't. Stick with me, and I'll help you, get there, because I have the answers. This is something I encountered when I first came into crypto, because you're looking for people to help you navigate the space. So you gravitate towards people who seem to talk with confidence. There's one thing that I learned more than anything else when I went to work for a protocol, and in this case, Harmony. And I learned that nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
Nobody knows anything at all. And like, the moment someone tries to persuade you that they do, you walk away in the other direction, because they're wrong. And that's the best place to start from. You are wrong. If you're giving me that much confidence that you know what you're talking about, you're wrong. And I really struggle with this, because it's exactly the thing that I'm supposed to do on our channel. I'm supposed to project confidence, project knowledge and understanding of what I'm talking about. And I feel at times like it's misplaced confidence that I'm giving off, because I don't know everything. There's no way I can possibly know everything. So the approach I kind of try and take is, here's what I found out. I could be right, I could be wrong. And here's what I think. I could be right, I could be wrong. And then when I'm doing tutorials, it's, this is something I've figured out, and I'm going this way. Again, I could be right, or I could be wrong. And it is so difficult to try and be a YouTube channel where everything is governed by numbers. The more clickbaity you are, the more certain of things you are, the more you sell stuff, the bigger your numbers are going to be. And we just can't afford to play that game. And I don't want to play that game, because I don't want to be responsible for people losing money, first of all. And I don't want to pretend to be something that I'm not, because I'm knowledgeable, but I'm not an expert. And I know a lot about a lot of different things. And I spend a lot of time talking to people, and I have spent a lot of time in this space absorbing as much as I can, so that I have a pretty good macro of a lot of different pieces of this puzzle, and at least enough to be able to kind of tie ideas that came up from 2017 with where we are now. And of course, that feeds into now the way I do things on the Defiant, which is, above all else, what we put out has to be good quality. And that means, in terms of the research, but also in terms of the way we shoot it. We want to put out a quality product. And like you'll see in the films that we make, that there's always an element of kind of, if you're doing like fine dining, it'd be called chefy. But like in our world, it's like there's something kind of fancy, a filmmaking technique or a lens that we use, or the way that we tell a story. And there's a very good reason we do that, in its simple differentiation. I want people who see our content to think, this guy does it like nobody else does it. And you may or you may not like it. You may want the guy who's just standing in front of a chart telling you what to buy and when to buy it. But for people who don't want that and do like enjoy the way I tell a story, they know that they're always going to get that, because that's how I do it. And I know that there's not a single other person anywhere in crypto that does that. So I'm like, that is my thing. That's how I do it. And I'm sticking to that. And if you want that, great. But like, don't expect me to do it like everyone else does. And I think that served us very well. And it makes us feel believable and authentic, because we don't ever deviate from that.
I think you're right, and you definitely stand out, and I think apart from the quality, the other reason that I have observed is that I'm a person who gets bored very quickly. So so your videos have always an entertainment element to it. So
Yes.
you don't have this serious image. You're not afraid to sort of not to look too confident and kind of know it all and have this branding of being an influencer, but you're kind of you're making sure I have a feeling, I don't know if that's the case, but at least, from my observations from a side, what you guys are creating are putting the viewers on the spotlight, and you put yourself in the viewer's shoes and try to produce something that would be providing value and entertainment and quality for the viewer. Basically, you're not doing it to look good, you're not doing it to sort of to get more views, you're doing it for the viewers to get better experience. So that's kind of based on what I've discovered. And I think it's great because usually unfortunately in this space what we've got from influencers is content where they are the hero of the story, while here you feel like it's done for you as a viewer. So I don't know if you agree with me.
That's really interesting, because I often put myself in ridiculous scenarios where I am the hero of the story. Like one video I jumped off a building, another video I was like battling crypto kitties in a kind of dystopian future landscape. I think not taking yourself too seriously is very important.
Yeah.
But fundamentally though, there is a reason why I do things the way I do them. And it's because I spent 20 years as a music video director, as a TV director. I've directed a feature film, and I got to a point in my career where I've done a lot of different things and had a lot of different types of experiences in film and television production. And one of the things we always kept bumping up against was that, like, what gets in the way of making something you enjoy is generally always money. Like somebody has some money and you need that money to be able to make something. And money is a problem that crypto doesn't have. And like another problem you bump up against in creative industries is people like to say no. People like to say no because it puts them in a position of power.
Yeah.
So you apply for funding, people say no. Yeah. Or you're in a competition and someone's it was good, but no. I mean, I've been in that position auditioning actors, and you say no a lot. And crypto is not like that. Crypto people say yes. It's bananas. Like, we were just having a discussion at the studio today. We're like, what if it was just like, we were specifically talking about bringing digital fashion into the metaverse, because digital fashion for me is going to be a huge thing. It's going to be a real gateway drug for a lot of people. I think a lot of women, could be wrong, to get into crypto, because we are heavily skewed male, like beyond ridiculously skewed male.
Tell me about it.
And so and it's gamers and traders, and the art has provided a gateway for more women to get into crypto, which is fantastic. Music will do the same, and fashion will be floodgates, and we'll see a lot more kind of diversity. Anyway, I digress. Trying to bring digital fashion into the metaverse, I'm building an avatar for myself to express myself in Somnium. And I was like, how do I get this awesome piece of digital fabric that a company called The Fabricant has made into Somnium? I was just chatting to the CEO of Somnium, chatting to the CEO of someone from The Fabricant. We're just like, can we connect these two up? Yeah. People just say yes. And it's fantastic. And it's because we're early. And it's because nobody has any clue what the answers are yet, and there are no established rules. So there's this really welcoming and open culture. I think a lot of that comes from a Silicon Valley mentality as well. Having worked in a Silicon Valley company, even though I wasn't based there, seeing the way people, they network and they come together and they go to barbecues and they just chat about stuff. It's very non-European, that approach, and it filters down into a lot of what makes blockchain and crypto so fun. And so if you are a creator and you're coming from a space of being told no a lot and of being poor and being sort of brainwashed into accepting that the arts are always going to have their funding cut and they're a luxury item, if you like, then you have this amazing experience where A, money isn't the problem, and B, people like to say yes. And as a creator, you just go, well, now we can do something. And I think it's fantastic to see. I think it's fantastic to see the way like creators on YouTube and creators on Instagram who really understood how to play those games were able to monetize their ability to capture attention.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about the quality of what they've been doing and how they've gone about it. Like, don't get me wrong, there are some creators that I whose content I watch and I go, you are a talented storyteller, you're a talented artist in some way, but a lot of it isn't. And I mean, I think it sort of sucks some of the oxygen away from the people who are really good at making stuff but aren't necessarily good at promoting themselves, because you're putting the value of what someone does onto their ability to growth hack rather than on their skill as a storyteller. And for me, that always kind of removes the creativity from what people do, and it reduces it down to a numbers game and an algorithmic.
But it's the same somewhere else as well, right? Like, you know, I'm coming from self-publishing industry. I mean, like I'm self-published author, so you know, there too, self-publishing kind of brings a similar sort of, you know, benefit, similar to NFTs, where you can bypass agents and publishers, etc., and sort of, you know, go out there and directly sell your books to your potential readers. But there too, like, you know, on Amazon, how many books are there? So, you know, if you are amazing writer and you know how to self-publish your books and you just put it out there, it's not like you wrote it and people will come and will buy it. So then, you know, this element of you know, the need of promotion and marketing and growth hacking, etc., it's there as well. And unfortunately, what I've discovered is that not everyone is comfortable with doing that, right? So, and plus, you know, figuring things out in terms of how to promote their work takes up so much energy and time, which they would prefer to spend on creating more art or, you know, creating more creative, you know, projects and stuff like that. So I do agree with you that yeah, there are some people who have these skills of promoting their work, and that somehow compensates the difference in quality of you know, compared to other artists, and then they do better. So I don't know. I mean, on top of this, in the NFT world, I think there's also this, no matter how easy it is to get into it, but there is still a learning curve in terms of understanding what it is actually, how it works, etc. So there are like different layers that add up to just, okay, you can go out there and create, and people will come and buy your NFTs, right? So I don't know. On the other hand, I feel like it's not a surprise to me that NFTs got the biggest crowds, non-crypto crowds coming into the space, because, you know, they are about things that people are already by default passionate about, right? So, you know, they understand, and NFT space probably is the one that speaks the least about the technology and positions itself as something else rather than just, you know, a blockchain thing, right? Because in other projects, blockchain has always been kind of the hero of the story and the attractive element towards it, and everyone really loved talking about the fact that they use blockchain technology in their projects. With NFT, it's not about that so much, I have a feeling. What do you think about that?
Ooh. Well, it depends. It depends at what point it becomes prohibitive. So I mean, you've got a few different things to combat here. Like OpenSea, before NFTs were really starting to take off was still full of stuff that was garbage. And I don't mind saying that. There was a lot of garbage out there. And people were selling it on there because they could, and because there wasn't much else. Now I think you have a different situation, which is a lot of good art that no one sees. And also a lot of good art that no one really cares about, because there's no story. And so you have to work a lot harder to get seen and get noticed. And there is a degree to which, if you're going to come and take up residence in a space like blockchain that has its own rules and has its own culture, you have to respect that culture when you come in. You know, you can't just go and be a hip hop MC without spending at least some time understanding that culture and doing it. Because people will just laugh you out the park. They won't care, because there's an authenticity to it. And I think, you know, in the NFT art space, there are certainly some OGs who have, it's not just about the fact that they've made work, it's how long they've been there and how long they were doing it when no one else was taking notice, and when no one cared, and they were the oddball and they were the weirdo, and suddenly now they're cool because they were there, they were first, and everyone thinks it just happened overnight, but it didn't. They were there, you know, like someone like Rack, who is now seeing enormous success. He's able to invest in OpenSea. His NFTs are legit. They're beautiful. He's a Grammy award-winning artist. This guy made a bold move to step away from major record labels to self-publish, and he just sat and he worked and he learned what Ethereum was, and he experimented, and nobody gives him any credit for that because all they see is like this shiny artist who's got like some expensive NFTs. But not only is his work good, and you can look at it and say objectively it is good, but also he's earned it, you know. And he's a truly nice guy who worked really hard at this and is still open to sharing what he's learned. But people like that are rare. And I think what you see now is like it's envy, basically. You know, X earned this much money, so why can't I? You know, I deserve to earn this much money. It's like, well, no. They took a risk, and you didn't, and they took a risk at the right time.
Envy and greed from the, you know, consumer's perspective. It's not like, you know, all the people who are buying these NFTs are art lovers or music lovers or whatever, right? It's this greed motivation of you know, being greedy and just making money, and that being a hot topic, and this is the place to go and try. But I think what you mentioned a word which is very important, I think, in this space, which is experiment. I feel like, yes, the space is pretty, you know, relatively new, and as you said, there are no rules. So many people are very tempted, and because it's easy, right, to just copy and paste and sort of follow the same things that some people did, and it worked for them. But the problem is that what they don't understand is, first of all, it worked for them back then, and the times have changed. Maybe the same thing doesn't work anymore. And the second, it worked for them, and there is really a lot of personality aspect to it. So even if you copy everything identically the same way in terms of how they marketed it themselves, you can never be them, right? So, you know, it's just that element you can't copy, and you can't be someone else. So experimenting and figuring out new ways is probably, just like you did things differently and you stood out, is probably the only way to stand out. And in order to know what those experiments can be, I think you have to understand how things work, because, like, you know, unless you know what is an NFT and what are the possibilities of what you could do and what you could create and turn into an NFT, it's going to be very hard to imagine and, you know, how you can experiment with them, right?
Yeah. You touched on a lot of things there that are very dear to me. First of all, blockchain by its very nature is, because it's open source, it is a forking culture. So everything gets forked. And this is a good thing and a bad thing. If you look at Uniswap version 3, they have built in a layer of protection for the code so that you can't fork it. And they've done that because I don't know how many Uniswap clones there have been, but that code base is responsible for a DEX on every single layer 1 that's of any sort of credible nature at all.
Yeah.
It had the liquidity drained from it by SushiSwap, and they're butthurt about that. I can understand why. and that's just one of the most relevant examples. I mean, how many clones of Bitcoin have there been? How many forks of Ethereum have there been? I mean, it's in its very nature, people copy and then they tweak and then they repackage and then they call it the same thing because they're riding on the coattails of that success. I hate that. I hate that. I find myself more and more taking an approach where I deliberately do the exact opposite. So, I mean, the way we do the YouTube channel is, I mean, I'll tell you how we do the YouTube channel. It's literally this. I don't watch any other crypto YouTube, not a single other thing. I don't watch any of it, and there's a very good reason for that. I don't want to be influenced by it. I do watch other YouTube channels, but essentially the approach I take to every story we tell is I just listen to what the story is, and then I mean, usually what happens is I kind of have an idea by like Thursday or Friday what I want the next week's story to be, and then Saturday and Sunday I just let it percolate in my head like coffee grounds. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, an idea starts to emerge. And usually that idea is based on some kind of pop culture reference that is sitting in there. So it could be 1980, 80s B movies, or it could be the Joker, or it could be, it could be all sorts of different things. But fundamentally, there's an echo of something. It was a mishmash of different things that is sitting up there in my head going, why don't you do it like this? So, okay. So for instance, next week, we're going to be doing MEV. And MEV is something that nobody understands. And it's miner extracted value. And it's basically the way miners who are getting shafted by this new EIP 1559 proposal, they'll lose a lot of the value that comes from minings, and there are different ways for them to extract value through mining using MEV. Very boring, but you start to dig into the tangled dark forest of Ethereum and the mempool and all these things that are going on that you never see, the dark, weird subculture of the Ethereum blockchain. And so I start to think about horror movies, and there's this horror movie called The Witch, which came out not so very long ago. And I have seen the trailer for The Witch. I have seen the film for The Witch. They're in my head, but I will not go back and watch them. I will let that echo of the film that I know start to inform me as I put together an intro that will be a horror film. And I'll design it with that feeling in my head, but I won't go back and watch it. And it's because I'm terrified of just duplicating things and copying them. It's absolutely fine to pastiche and reference things, but if you parrot something shot for shot, there's not a huge amount of you in that. And so, it's the Tarantino thing. His films are a tapestry of his influences and everything he's watched, but they're uniquely Tarantino. And that's fine. We can't all be original artists blessed with a singular vision and the tenacity to go and pursue it. There are very, very few of those kind of people around. But what I think someone like me can do is I can take all of these different things and then reimagine them or remix them in a way that takes a story that has nothing to do with it, that does not deserve that kind of treatment, and then make it into something brand new. I mean, the thing I'm sort of most proud of this year was an idea that was born simply out of not having enough time to do anything. And I was talking about a hack, and this hack was fascinating because it took 11 steps for the hack to happen, and it all happened in a very short space of time. But when you hear developers talk about these hacks, they talk about them like they're pieces of art, like they're masterpieces. And I was like, how do I turn this hack into a masterpiece? And obviously we're all thinking about crypto art, and people have done, visualizations of the Ethereum blockchain. And for some reason, I don't know why, I decided to turn it into a slow jam. And I was like, okay, how does that work? Because I have a musical background and I used to be a chorister. I've got a perfect pitch. So I understand music a little bit, but like the idea of taking, and it was a tweet storm that someone had written, which was explaining all the different steps. I was like, if I did this like Drake freestyling over a slow jam beat, what would that look like? And could I even pull it off? And that's like, those kind of ideas, that's my happy place, because I have no idea whether it's going to work or not. And I have so little time to think of an alternative. I just have to make it happen. So that's the challenge every week. Like a couple of weeks back, I did this big green screen sequence where I'm on a rooftop and I get hit by lightning and then I jump off the roof. And it's like always thinking about the audience. Like if people are going to come back each week to tune in to see what we have to say, and they have all these other options, what can I give them that rewards them for that? And like I make half-hour videos, and not all of it's like that, but like if they'll remember something, what will it be?
That's what I meant when I said that, you know, the viewers were the hero. I mean, you had them in your mind when you were creating stuff. Like it shows.
Yeah, and we have I'm working with a young director at the moment, and you know what we always talk about is, you know, the binary components of creativity, which is idea and execution. And I think what you tend to find a lot of in the modern era is very good execution. Like desktop publishing has got to the standard where, you know, any Medium article that anyone puts out, initially the impression is, wow, this looks legit. The cameras that we can use to shoot things look legit. Like a lot of YouTubers now, because they all copy each other, they've all got lovely soft boxes, they can make their stuff look good. And so there's this kind of sheen of production and sheen of execution that is, it's not easy, but it's you can learn it and you can apply it and you can add this impression that your work is good. Where most people fall down.
Yeah, it's a standard template you can follow, like at a high level, you know.
Yeah, template's unfair, but yeah, it's like, you know, getting a WordPress template or anything else. You can make stuff look pretty good pretty quickly, but it's generic. And so what we're always trying to do is embed ideas, you know, because we know that we can also execute to a very high standard. I know we can also execute things that other people just can't do. And that's not blowing my own trumpet. It's just because I've spent a lot of time doing this stuff. And so I know how to put together like a sequence that has a certain style to it and know with confidence that I can pull it off because I've probably done it like 50 times in the past. So there's a level of experience there, but it's about the ideas. And I would rather see a strong idea and slightly poor execution than the other way around every time. And ideas are what gets me excited. And when this young director pitches me an idea and you go, oh, but he doesn't quite pull it off, I don't care. It's like, dude, that was great. You know, next time you'll know, and you can just tweak this bit and tweak this bit. But if it's just like, if he was coming to me and every single shot was framed perfectly and it was lit perfectly, but it was boring, I'm just like, dude, throw that away, let go of it. And I think one of the biggest lessons for me starting on YouTube was forcing myself to let go of perfection. And it has never been healthier for me to do that than the last year and a half. Done is
better than perfect, yeah.
Well, the thing is, I am a perfectionist, and I'll work all through the night to make things just seamless, and I'll obsess over an edit, and I'll obsess over a music edit, and timing these things. And like if I look at my earlier Defiant videos, I spent a long time perfecting the transitions, but like the schedule we work to, it just doesn't allow it. So I basically make sure that every video I try and put one kind of idea in there that you haven't seen before, or that makes me feel like, yeah, this video was worth making because, and it's not even about the audience, it's because it matters to me. You know, if I'm going to come into work every day, I want to be excited about what we do. We are telling the weirdest stories, and if you just sit there and tell people what happened, it's boring. It is.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think the biggest risk is making people, I mean, I'd rather have people get annoyed or frustrated with something that you've done rather than like the worst thing that can happen, I think, is in the indifference. You know, when it just doesn't resonate, doesn't touch at all, it just, you know, doesn't really make any difference whether you sell this thing or didn't. It just passes you by and you never even, you know, think about it. So I do agree with you. When people generalize things, you know, when usually it's like this division between the types of people, right? Some people are kind of, you know, creative, artistic, and the others are like more techy and logical, right brain, left brain, etc., etc. And they say that it's very rare when people are both, right? But I feel like, the creators in the blockchain space have to have at least kind of, some kind of balance, because they have to grasp and understand these concepts that you are, educating us on in your videos, right? So is this like, have you found that probably telling it in artistic language, in the storytelling format, is the way that is easier for creators to understand tech? That's why you're going that route? Or like, do you believe that people are either one or the other?
You're going deep. You're going deep. For me, there was one moment when I kind of let go, because we were looking at DeFi and we were telling DeFi stories. And this is when I first started making videos for the Defiant. And I was giving the subject matter too much respect. And I was aware that I was doing that, but I was also doing it out of respect for people and what they were building. But in doing so, I was kind of denying the exuberance and the youthfulness of the space. And I was not being true to myself, to be honest with you. And so I kind of went on holiday and recharged, and I came back and I just let go of all of that, because there is a way that Bloomberg covers financial news. There's a way that big news organizations cover the news. And I feel like most of the time they do it with too much respect. And I don't have to do that. So we were discussing the launch of the Curve token, which was so weird and so just baffling in so many ways. But it was born out of a Telegram group where everyone was just bashing into each other and confused and memeing all over the place. I was just like, this is how we tell these stories. That's the truth of it. And so like in that video, I get hit in the face with a banana a lot, because for me,
I've seen that one. Yeah,
bananas are curved, and we're talking about curve, but also bananas are just funny. And like, it was bananas. I was like, well, maybe we go there. And then, and then it folded into a whole bunch of food-fi things, and I was just getting crap in my face. What we were basically experimenting with was, would people still watch the videos even if we did that? And could we entertain people and still get them hooked into the story? The other problem that you have with blockchain is you can't see it. You can't see it. I used to shoot vacuum cleaners. I used to shoot coffee machines. I spent like 2.5 years filming products and showing how they work. And you put the product on your desk and you press buttons and you can see it. And you go, oh, that's a nice angle. That's a nice angle. Where's the blockchain? You can't see it. So like, that is one of the biggest challenges that we have telling these stories, is how to make it visual. That's why I use so many props. That's why I dress up in stupid clothes. That's why I sing songs. It's all because I have nothing to show you unless I build it and use it as a metaphor or find another way to do it. So that is the constant struggle. It's like, how do I take this story and then turn it into something you can actually see? And we don't always succeed, but I think it's born out of necessity. You have to give people metaphors and ways to connect with what you're talking about that feel comfortable with them. And that's why we use so many. Yeah, that's why we use so many pop culture references. But it's also just because, like, what you see on screen is how I tell stories. It's me, and like that is just what it is.
No,
I mean, I do it because I like doing
perfect.
it. You know?
I think it's perfect because you're bridging the gap between the real world and the blockchain world. Because as you said, like, the blockchain can't be seen, and it can't be understood for many. It's a challenge to understand it. So they need some kind of similarities, some kind of analogies in their real life in order to imagine things better. Because otherwise, like I've heard, for example, I did a live stream the other day, and I was getting, and usually I don't sort of talk about the tech stuff on my Facebook live streams, but it was multi-streaming and I was on Facebook, and I've got people there telling telling me, oh, it's hard for us to understand crypto because it's so abstract. And I'm like, what do you mean it's so real? What is abstract about it? But in people's minds, like, until they try it and kind of, grasp the reality of it, until they go through the whole journey and actually see that it's real, for them it's an abstract theory. So when you are bridging those gaps and putting analogies and similarities in different situations where in life that they've gone through, it's easier for them to understand it. So I totally get that. I mean, getting back to these creators, I came into the blockchain space completely accidentally because back then I was a full-time fiction author, and I started creating a bit of content on Steam It. I ended up with Steam dollars and Steam. I had no idea what it was. I also had a podcast, so it was very easy to get a few people from Steam to do interviews, to ask them to explain me what it actually was, and then it just dragged me down the rabbit hole. I started reading Andres Antonopoulos' books. I tried to do something with these Steam dollars, so I had a bit of practical experience as well, and then it just went from there. Steam it feels like it's not really working as well. I mean, it's not really the space it was like 3 years ago. But there are loads of alternatives. Like for artists, we already covered a little bit the NFT space. But for creators now, it feels like there are other social media alternatives coming out more and more, especially with this need of, since they saw that even the president of the US can be deplatformed and kind of, be banned to tweet and all that stuff. So people feel the urge of sort of decentralized social media, and there are many tries happening there. BitClout is the one that is out recently, right? I guess, which is kind of doing these big waves, and everyone is talking about it. I've heard different perspectives about it. I'd like to hear yours, and let's discuss it. I have my own opinions about it as well. What do you think about it?
That is a big question. I think it's a big question because fundamentally, the effort to set up an alternative social media platform where people who use it, I'm not going to say creators, people who use it are able to monetize without using advertising, I think it's noble. The task I set myself this week was to challenge my assumptions about BitClout, because I don't think I've ever approached a subject in this space before with so many baked in prejudices. Mm-hmm. And I have to sort of kick myself when I start to see that and say, but what if you are wrong? Mm-hmm. And what if your prejudices are misplaced? Then what? And what does that look like? Because it's what I would expect from other people, and it's very hard to find. And so the stronger my feelings towards something being negative, the more I have to encourage myself to explore further and take the position of people who do support these things. Because of course, we get so much pushback on blockchain from people who are in exactly that position. Oh, I've heard it was a scam, and they don't look further. So BitClout, oh, I heard it was a scam, you don't look further. And I think that is a dangerous position to start from. So my position initially was, I don't like the look of this. And it's for a few different reasons. One of which was the launch looked somewhat shady. The level of VC pre-mine looked problematic. The uncertain answers to questions that the Defiant got when they pushed for answers looked odd. I mean, the biggest red flag of all is you send Bitcoin in, you can't get Bitcoin out. You can't take it out.
Yeah.
And the response to that is to do with atomic swaps. The sort of vague research, and I say not from a position of expert here, this the vague research that we did seems to suggest that may not necessarily be exactly true, but it might be true for them. So I reserve judgment. The fact that it's built on a Bitcoin derived network is very odd, given how mature DeFi protocols are now and how composable they are. For me, it would make much more sense to build a network that can connect to other things and can build in DeFi primitives to add on top of the creator coin value that's there. All of these things make it very, very difficult. I mean, the other thing that bothers me as well is like when you see the rate at which people are buying these creator coins and they're going up when they're early, the dynamics of all of that feel really off. And I'll tell you why. It goes back to when I was working at Harmony. Okay, so the what I talked about, there being headwinds to do with market and trading performance. If you're a big company that raised a lot of money, you can weather those storms. You can have a downward negative effect from the market, and you can come through that okay, as long as you manage your treasury okay. But psychologically, it is brutal. And I think there were a lot of teams during the bear that were backed into a corner where they were running out of money and they were selling their own tokens on the open market just to keep going.
Yeah.
And the pressure on someone who's in control of something that's being traded on the open market to sustain the value of what they're doing artificially, to prioritize that above the other things that they're doing, is fairly hefty. And the other issue is that if someone decides that they're going to pump your coin, they will, because it's easy, because it's the same thing that Rubini always shouts when he's shouting about Bitcoin. He's like, the illiquid shit coins, and they just get pumped and dumped. And he's not wrong, and like how much it'd be pretty easy to pump and dump creator coin. It gets harder as the value goes up, because it's much harder to mint the new coins. But in those early stages, it's pretty easy. And if you are a creator with 1 million, 2 million followers on Twitter, and you're not already on there, you could quite easily jump in, make a ton of money, and get out and dump. And I don't think anyone could really do anything about it. So the dynamics of that are uncomfortable for me. And I think as these things go on, the pressure on a creator to maintain their token price in the face of what could be overwhelming pressure. People were shilling me the Elon Musk example. Elon Musk gets a man on the moon, his token price should go up. But if Elon Musk smokes a doobie on Joe Rogan, his token price should go down. Or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Or if he issues a racial slur, the token price goes down. The argument about that is that it's crowdsourced, market economics driving, the creator value, but it's so easy to manipulate that. So, if we think about how easy it is for people to troll online, it will be so easy for someone to just mount a group that's designed to dump a token and take control of that token. But equally, if you are a creator and for whatever reason your token gets hot because of a pump and dump group, and then someone buys the top and then they're left holding garbage, they're going to be angry. And it's one thing people being angry about influencers because they don't like the way they look, or they're too fat, or they said something stupid. You add people losing money on top of that, it gets really problematic. And like everything I've heard so far from the people I've talked to is, this is the new social media. We're going to add real money to social presences, no more advertising, and no more of this and that and this and that. I just like, guys, you're not thinking the entire cycle, and you're not thinking psychologically what this does to a creator.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the pressure of earning like a ton of money. It's the pressure of sustaining that, and it's also the pressure of just what comes at you when people have lost money and they blame you and they're angry with you and they hunt you down, and they and I used to get people telling me how they were going to find me and they would like send me pictures of the knives they bought to cut off my fingers, like, dude, I have nothing to do with the token price. Why are you sending me this stuff? And I understand that you're angry, but like, that is crossing a line. That's crossing a line.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I totally
ridiculous.
get that, and yeah, there were loads of stories like that during the ICO times. I mean, my main concern about this whole story is, and I'm like, I'm observing for now, just like you. I'm kind of, not really jumping into it. Neither kind of, I'm trying to stay neutral. But there are a few things that, like, at a high philosophical perspective, like, I just don't like, because I feel like, first of all, it doesn't really encourage creators and creativity and content creation, etc. Because it's more about, so the way I feel about the whole vibe around it is like, it's 2017, it's the ICO hype, but instead of projects, now it's your profile, it's your personality, it's yourself. So, you are the ICO project, so to speak, which means that eventually all this ICO dynamic and everything else, cutting fingers, and also, the FUD towards the project, and then, the team being distracted by sorting out and thinking about the keeping up the token price versus actually building what they were meant to build, etc., etc. All these dynamics is going to just turn into individual level, because it's going to work the same way, because the whole structure is very similar to that. And that is very dangerous in a sense that here, like, if you're a part of a team, you have the choice of leaving the team at one point when you disagree or you don't want to continue with this. But when you put yourself out on the market and it's you, I think you froze. Hello? Let me check, guys. What's going on? I just want to see if we're still streaming or not, and whether I dropped or he did. Yeah, I think it's him.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, you're back.
Yes.
You were frozen, so I didn't. I was checking whether I froze or you froze.
I was so shocked by what you were saying. I just froze.
Oh my god! Yeah. So, how much did you hear? Where did you stop?
I'll tell you what I heard. I heard.
Okay, I'll just restart and just recap. So basically, what I was saying, it was like, here here it's not. If you had a choice during ICO times to be part of a team or to leave based on what's going on, and you had decisions to make, and the project itself did not identify you as a person, and you could detach at one point. Here, it's you, it's yourself, it's your reputation, it's your personal brand, it's you. So the problem with this is, like, when things go wrong, or when you don't want to participate in this whole thing anymore, you already have the tokens sold, you already have your responsibility out there. You can't just go and say, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. So I feel like now everyone is jumping on it just because there is this opportunity, just because there are these promises of making lots of money, etc., etc. But in reality, what they don't realize is that it's the impact is very big, and it's not necessarily predictable either. So are you actually putting, I don't know, like, yourself out there and agreeing for this long journey of unpredictability and additional stuff that comes with this potential of making money? Or I don't know. I just feel like, many people just don't think too deep around this, and don't really understand what it may end up becoming eventually. So
yeah, and there's real money at stake. And the conversations I had with a couple of growth hackers, I put it in the video, and they were very enthusiastic about this, and they were kind of talking about how they had made a ton of money, but they got their money out by selling BitClout tokens OTC. So this is so effectively what they've done is they've done the BitClout, go into an OTC Discord group, sold for USDT or whatever, and then they just send that BitClout to the person's address or wallet within the BitClout ecosystem. Now look, we have frozen again. Now, the optimistic version of this is that they figure out how to make this a thing and how to make it work, and that this is an experimental boot up phase, and it's a necessary kind of emerging set of ideas that will eventually be ratified into something that actually makes sense. You need a lot of good governance in all of that. And one of the big kind of selling points of this platform is the investors. So you've got Sequoia, A16Z, you've got Scooter Braun's investment company, you've got Arrington Capital, you've got a bunch of people that people know.
That's
whether
true,
that means it's legit or not, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, about the investors, you froze again, I think. But let's see. Hello, are you back? That's what's happening with live streams. You know, you can't predict what's gonna happen next. So yeah, let's just wait. And we're gonna wrap up soon anyway, so we won't be torturing you much more.
If I keep my camera off, everything works. It's when you have to see me. God damn it! I'm a video human. Nobody wants to see me anymore. My entire equipment.
We'll be wrapping up soon anyway, so it's fine. Yes. We'll just yeah. What I was saying about investors. I mean, the thing is, like, you know, we have stories like WeWork. We have stories like was it called Theranos, or, you know, the blood startup?
Yeah, Theranos. I mean, that's a fascinating story. WeWork's also a fascinating story,
so both had these big investors and big funds, etc. So, like, you know, I have a feeling like that's kind of brings in credibility at some point. But when you look deeper and see all these big stories, at the end of the day, you know, it doesn't really matter so much in terms of, you know, like, you can't predict how things will go, right? So I don't know. The other element that makes me feel a bit cautious about stuff is I'm paying attention of who are promoting it, what type of people are promoting it in the space, and that for me is already some kind of, you know, criteria to sort of look at the advocates, or, you know, brand ambassadors or whatever. They don't have this, you know, formal status, of course, but when you look at the trend of the types of people who are promoting it aggressively, or, you know, very, very actively, then that for me is like, okay, I really need to wait, because these type of people are not really the ones I trust so much or respect so much. So this is a little bit like, let's just wait and see what happens next. So probably, you know, if it works out, by waiting, we will be missing out this opportunity, you know, period where we could have done much more. But, you know, better safe than sorry in this case. At least that's my perspective. Yes. In terms of creators, like, NFT space is where, you know, there's lots of things happening. We kind of touched on that. Different social media platforms for creators coming up. Apart from, you know, BitCloud, there are other creator tokens token platforms that have been rolled out. I think Rolly is one of them. There are a few others that are coming out. What do you think about those?
Yeah, well, one of the people whose opinions I always enjoy gathering for the videos, and he writes for the Defiant, is Cooper Talley. Cooper really is excited by the potential of social tokens, and I think he sees a bright and optimistic future for them. I'm a little bit on the more kind of pessimistic side around social tokens, but it's for the same reasons that I'm pessimistic about BitCloud. And again, like with everything else, could be wrong. I could be just not seeing it, and that's also fine. But we talk about these things, and try roll, or the roll platform is has hosted a lot of social tokens. There's a social currency that I enjoy the community of, which is called Friends with Benefits, and it's a very well-rounded, well thought out, DAO governed community that it works for me.
I should check it out. Yeah.
I don't buy the tokens because I see them as an investment. I just want access to that community. And I feel like it's on me to make the most of that if I can. But I think it's one of the things I'm enjoying seeing. I do believe that and I'm already seeing it, that Hollywood studios, for instance, are going to be coming in, and Hollywood's Hollywood has access to this celebrity network. It promotes itself very well. It feeds into kind of brain channels, if you think about the Marvel extended universe, that really fit in this space. And you can see a blockchain component and NFT component slotting in very nicely. I'm very keen to be involved in discussions around that. And it's fun that I can be.
Yeah.
So
yeah, makes sense.
The thing is, you were talking about creativity and experimentation. For me right now, it's like being a kid in a candy store, because any project that's doing something fun, I just go in the Telegram and say, hey guys, would love to speak to you. And they will speak to you. But it's not just about reporting the news or telling a story about what they're doing. It's much more like, okay, I've got this idea. Is it possible? And then we start to get into these really fun conversations, because they're also looking to try and experiment with stuff. And, I don't call myself a creator because, frankly, I hate the word. And I have this image in my head of what a creator is, and I don't feel that I fit into that. I'm fundamentally, I'm a filmmaker, and I express my ideas and my vision of the world through film. And there's a craft to that I still haven't mastered, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to master, but that's the thing that I care about. But, with NFTs, which can be a distribution mechanism, they can also be a revenue mechanism, and they can hold media, and they can also be a passport allowing you into an event or somewhere else. I feel like there's an incredible piece of technology that's kind of like the carrier for any kind of entertainment proposition we would like to fit onto it. This sense that NFTs are only crypto art is just not, it's not the full story by any stretch. When you then think about the metaverse, and particularly from a creative point of view, where you can build anything you want, you can make it 360, you can make it, what I like about Somnium in particular is because it's VR, it's physical as well. So you move, you physically move from one place to another, and you can see everything around you. Then from a creator's point of view, this is a great time to be alive, because you can experiment with all these places, and you can connect to the people who are building these things, and you can talk to the people who are really pushing the edges of what's possible. And then you combine that with a built-in distribution mechanism and a built-in audience mechanism. It's just like, yeah, if you can figure out how to tie all those things together, you won't ever look back. It's going to be fascinating. But I think that's kind of what I see my role in many ways. Not just to tell the story of a Yearn vault launching or anything else, but to actually be building stuff and experimenting and trying new things in front of you, and probably failing as well. I'm particularly fascinated by
the journey anyway. So,
we're being confronted with fascinating advances in technology, particularly to do with AI and fake news and deep fakes and synthetic media. And on the other hand, we have this incredible development of the Unreal Engine, which can do live, real-time rendering of almost photorealistic environments, and that's now. In 5 years, 10 years, Unreal will be able to render, full 8K scenes that look exactly like the real world, and you'll be able to step into them. This is where we're going, and it's mind-boggling. And I feel like blockchain and crypto will play a big part of that. NFTs will play a big part of that. And the metaverse will be such a big part of our lives from, starting now, that I kind of want to be there. And I also want to have a hand in shaping the way that those discussions roll out, and at least having some say in trying to advocate for, as you said at the beginning, for humans, for real people, and where do we fit into all of this? It's a very real discussion. And actually, funny enough, I was talking to people from Ledger who make the hardware wallets, and they were saying, well, what is your vision of crypto? And I said, human beings. Don't forget about the human beings. The more techie we get, the more human we have to be. Otherwise, we lose it. And I think that's the wonderful thing about my job, is that I get to just layer all that stuff on top, and I'm indulged in that, and I get to have fun doing it. So if we have to wrap up,
those human beings who are watching now, those creative people who are watching now and want to get into the space, where do they start? I know that this space can be overwhelming because there are so many, opportunities, so many different directions to go, and so much information where you have to really filter out and understand like which is actually a useful one, which is not, which is true, which is not true, and all that stuff. So someone who's just getting into it from the outside as a new person, it's overwhelming. Very often they just don't really dive too deep because they don't even know where to start and what to do. So what should they do?
Yeah, that's a tough question because there's no one real kind of solid resource for all this stuff. And I do think, rightly or wrongly,
a part of watching your videos, of course, but
yeah, but our videos are quite high level, and they do sort of presuppose a decent amount of understanding of a lot of concepts because our core audience is what it is. You have to make mistakes. You have to have lost money trading. I feel like don't lose a lot, but like you have to know what it feels like to not be always making money, because then you start to learn a bit more respect for the markets and for what they can do to you. Trading is always going to be a part of this. Like if you are looking to generate value in a digital asset, that digital asset by its very nature is going to be tradable. And if you want people to interact with what you're doing, for instance, selling NFTs, there is a trading component to that. You are exposed to trading mechanics. Better learn them, be exposed to them, understand them, and yes, lose some money and understand what that feels like. So you have to kind of just be brave enough to dip a toe. But I think the most important thing is look for a community that fits to you. I mean, there's enough in the creator communities. If I think about like the platforms like Nifty Gateway, Super Rare, the community is great. There's a really fun community called Trash. A guy, Robness, is an artist from LA. He's just a good dude, and he shares knowledge, and he's there to help you. And you just talk to people. Another awesome platform is called Meme. It was born out of a bunch of jokers who just had a good time and shared memes, and this platform has blossomed into something really remarkable. I have a lot of time for that team, and the people who are in that community are fantastic. They're friendly and they care about art, but also, be careful as well. Like BitClout, I'm very, very cautious about. And yeah. I always try and help people answer questions if I can, because I think it's important to pay it forward. And we're looking to kind of build more resources, I guess, for people to come and just hang out and talk. And for me, that's going to happen in the metaverse. So, I mean, I'm just falling in love with Somnium as a platform. We've built an HQ there. You can access it through the Somnium web browser. And what I need to do is I need to just spend an hour there once a week for people just to come and ask questions, so I can be that resource and just say, look, come and ask me stuff, because I know a bunch of things, and if you don't ask me, and like I probably won't respond to you on Twitter because I get 1,000 people DMing me and it's really tough. But if we can have like a space like that, we can just say like once a week, create a session, just come and ask me stuff like, what is an NFT? How do I get started on OpenSea? We'll do what we can, and I think that is something that's definitely manageable and something I would like to do, because the meetups that we used to have, we can't have them anymore. And like Zoom chats are fine, but like there's something about hanging out in a specially designed VR environment where there's like art on the walls and you could actually go and buy the art, or I could just gift people NFTs. That's cool, and I want to explore more how that stuff happens. So there's something I definitely want to do in the near future. Just making sure we have time to actually do it properly. But
once you have that space set up, just let us know where to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been building it
around, so we'll just hang out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like almost like a clinic once a week, just to kind of hang out. And I think in many ways, being in that sort of space and environment, it's so much more inspiring than being on Zoom. Zoom is so kind of kind of clinical and flat. But when you can actually go and, we can take a walking tour and go and look at the Beeple Museum, for instance. These are things that are just cool. You can do insomnia.
Yeah.
So that's something I feel I need as an advocate for that, for metaverses in general. I think I need to do more of as well.
Yeah, sounds good. So thank you very much for your time. I'll just thank you everyone who were watching. We truly appreciate your time as well and the attention. Hopefully we captured it for an hour. And I'll stop the live stream now to just catch up and finish up. But everyone who were watching, thanks a lot. We appreciate you. Take care and have a nice evening.
Thanks, everyone.